Welcome to lesson 8 of our education online session. Today we're going to discuss about our natural environments. Over generations, all of the species that are currently alive today have evolved unique traits that make them distinct from other species. These differences are what scientists use to tell one species from another. Organisms that have evolved to, be so different from one another, they can no longer reproduce with each other and are considered different species. All organisms that can reproduce with each other fall in one species. Scientists are interested in how much biodiversity there is on a global scale. Given that there is still so much biodiversity to discover, they also study how many species exist in a single ecosystem, such as forest, grassland, tundra, or lake. A single grassland can contain a wide range of species, from beetles to snakes to antelopes. Ecosystems that host the most biodiversity tend to have ideal environmental conditions for plant growth, like the warm and wet climate of tropical regions. Ecosystems can also contain species too small to see with the naked eye. Looking at a sample of, for example, a soil or water through a microscope reveals a world unlike our own, of bacteria and other tiny organisms. All of Earth's species, are actually work together to survive and maintain these ecosystems. For example, the grass in pasture feeds cattle. Cattle then produce waste that returns nutrients to the soil, which helps to grow more grass. Many species provide important benefits to humans too, including food, clothing, and medicine. But unfortunately, much of Earth's biodiversity is under threat due to human consumption and other activities that disturb and even destroy ecosystems. Pollution, climate change, and population growth are all threats to biodiversity. These threats have caused an unprecedented rise in the rates of species extinction. However, conservation efforts are necessary to preserve biodiversity and protect endangered species and their habitats. And there are actually ways each and every single one of us can do in our daily lives to help these extraordinary places which we can benefit from too. So yeah, our planet's biodiversity, as we said, biodiversity is the term used to describe the enormous variety of life on Earth. It can be used more specifically to refer to all of the species in one region or ecosystem. Biodiversity refers to every living thing, including plants, bacteria, animals, and also humans. Scientists have estimated that there are about 8.7 million species of plants and animals in existence. However, only around 1.2 million species have been identified and described so far, most of which are insects. This means that millions of other organisms remain to be a complete mystery. So yeah, we'll be going through today's lesson is about marine ecosystems and freshwater ecosystems. Yeah, so we'll be going in detail about the most famous species of animals that live there, and you can let me know later what's your favorite too. Different areas of the oceans can be classified as different types of marine ecosystems. An ecosystem is defined as a community and the interactions of living and non-living things in an area. Marine ecosystems have distinct organisms and characteristics that result from the unique combination of physical factors that create them. Marine ecosystems include the abyssal plain, areas like deep sea coral, whale falls, and brine pools, polar regions such as the Arctic and the Antarctica, coral reefs, the deep sea such as the community found in the abyssal water column, hydrothermal vents, kelp forests, mangroves, the open ocean, rocky shores, salt marshes, mudflats, and sandy shores. The hydrosphere connects all freshwater and saltwater systems. Salinity or high salt content and global circulation make marine ecosystems different from the aquatic, from other aquatic environments. Some marine ecosystems are very productive. Near shore regions including estuaries, salt marshes, and mangrove forests, they teem with life. Some marine ecosystems like the deep sea are a constant darkness where photosynthesis cannot occur. Other ecosystems like rocky shores go through extreme changes in temperature, light availability, oxygen levels, and other factors on a daily basis. Something which, if you remember, we discussed it in evolution and adaptation region 2. The organisms that inhabit various ecosystems are diverse as the place which they live in. They must be highly adapted, to the physical conditions of the ecosystem in which they live. For example, organisms that live in the deep sea have adapted, to the darkness by creating their own light sources, as we discussed in the bioluminescent lessons. Many parts of the ocean remain unexplored, and much still remains to be learned about marine ecosystems. So let's move on. Among the most deadliest animals on earth, and you may ask, what are those above the picture of the box jelly? And I'm gonna get to that soon. So jellyfishes are scary, squishy, cool, brainless, and mesmerizing creatures. Jellyfishes are all of these and a whole lot more also. Anatomically, they are relatively simple animals. They lack not just brain, but also blood and bones, and possess only rudimentary sense organs. Despite their name, jellyfish aren't, of course, fish. What unites them in that they have conveyed on a similarly evolutionary history. Jellyfishes, exhibit a fantastic range of shapes, sizes, and behavior. The so-called immortal jellyfish, for example, resemble a tiny, hairy thimble and live in the Mediterranean Sea and also off Japan. Members of these species can reserve the aging process so that instead of expiring, they reconstitute themselves as juveniles. The juvenile then start the jellyfish life cycle all over again. Being 95% water and gelatinous is a good strategy on an ocean planet, which is why jellyfishes have survived for hundreds of millions of years. Jellyfish have tiny sting cells in their tentacles to stun or paralyze their prey before they eat them. Inside their bell-shaped body is an opening that is the mouth. They can eat and discard waste from that opening. Millions of sting cells line the tentacles and arms. Some have coiled, barbed tubes, that when triggered uncoil with enough force to pierce shells or flesh to inject venom. The one which you can see here in the video. So we see once triggered, those trigger wires, it blasts off and shoots out a harpoon. Once the prey is caught, the hair-like cilia on the outer arms of the jellyfish help convey it towards the mouth. If it fits, it's swallowed in minutes. Larger prey can take hours to ingest. A central cavity acts as both stomach and intestine to churn and break down food. 16 stomach pouches transport nutrients throughout the bell. Waste, mostly ammonia, is secreted through tissue or excreted from the single orifice that serves the jellyfish as both mouth and anus. As jellyfish squid water from their mouths, they are propelled, forward. Tentacles hang down from the smooth bag-like body and sting their prey. Jellyfish stings can be painful to humans and sometimes even very dangerous. But jellyfish don't purposely attack humans. Most stings occur when people accidentally touch a jellyfish, but if the sting is from a dangerous species, it can be deadly. And here, as I said earlier, it's a box jellyfish. The infamous box jellyfish developed, its frighteningly powerful venom to instantly stun or kill prey, like fish and shrimp. So, their struggle to escape wouldn't damage its delicate tentacles. Their venom is considered to be among the most deadly in the animal kingdom, containing toxins that attack the heart and nervous system and also skin cells. It is so overpoweringly painful, human victims have been known to go into a shock and drown or die of heart failure before even reaching shore. Survivors can experience considerable pain for weeks and often have significant scarring where the tentacles made contact. Up to 15 tentacles grow from each corner of the bell and it can reach 10 feet in length. Each tentacle has about 5,000 skin cells, which are triggered not by touch but by the presence of chemicals on the outer layer of its prey. However, this may sound a little mythical. Sea turtles are not affected at all by the sting of the box jelly and regularly eat them. And I've been, stung by some jellyfishes before, but of course not the box jelly. And some of them which actually have powerful stinging cells, they are so annoying. They make you itch for a very, very long time, and that's not a good thing. Especially if it's on your hand, you cannot pick up things. It'll be a big trouble for you then. The next here we have got, you all know what is this? It's a Portuguese man of war. Just like the dreaded Portuguese man of war are also related to corals actually, but they are part of a different subgroup, the siphonophores, which practice an unusual form of collective living. What looks like a single man of war in this picture is technically a colony that developed from the same embryo. Instead of simply growing larger, the embryo sprouts new bodies which take on different functions. Some develop into tentacles, for example, and some become those bell at the top. The Portuguese man of war comprises 4 separate polyps. It gets its name from the uppermost polyp, a gas-filled bladder or pneumatophore, which sits above the water and somewhat resembles an old warship at full sail. The tentacle are the man of war's second organisms, and these long thin tendrils can extend 165 feet in length below the surface. Although 30 feet is more average, They are covered in venom-filled nematocysts used to paralyze and kill fish and other small creatures. For humans, however, the man of war sting is excruciatingly painful, but rarely deadly. Man of wars are found sometimes in groups of 1,000 or more, floating in warm waters throughout the world oceans. They have no independent means of propulsion and are adrift on the current or catch the wind with their pneumatophores, which actually the bladder again, to avoid threats on the surface. They can deflate their airbags and briefly submerge too. So the next we have got here is also among the deadliest of all animals, cone snails. The incredibly toxic venom of the geographical cone snail has to be strong enough to paralyze instantly. Otherwise the fish it preys on would swim away to die, and slow-moving gastropods would have nothing for its effort. Indigenous to the reef of Indo-Pacific, geographic cone snails grow to about 6 inches in length. The geographic cone snail is the most venomous of the 500 known cone snail species, and several human deaths have been attributed to them. Their venom, a complex concoction of hundreds of different toxins. It is delivered via a harpoon-like tooth propelled from an extendable proboscis, which we can see from this video here. And it's said that each time, with each shooting of like a bullet, it has a different amount and a different type of toxin, so it's not always the same. They can change their chemistry of their venom, and they can also change how potent it could be. And we can see another prey like the fish is swallowed while it's still almost alive. So yes, it's always said, if you see a cone, leave it alone. The next we have got the giant clam. The giant clam gets only one chance to find a nice home. Once it fastens itself to a stop on a reef, there it sits for the rest of its life. which is around 100 or more years. These bottom-dwelling mollusks are the largest mollusks on Earth, capable of reaching 4 feet in length and weighing more than 500 pounds. They live in warm waters of the South Pacific and Indian Ocean. Giant clams achieve their enormous proportions by consuming the sugars and proteins produced by the millions of algae that live on their tissues. In exchange, they offer the algae a safe home and regular access to sunlight for photosynthesis. They also use a siphon to draw in water to filter and consume passing plankton also. The muscle of the giant clam is actually considered as a delicacy and over-harvested unfortunately for food. Shells are very, famous in the aquarium trade, and so this group has been rated as vulnerable. The next, we have got coral reefs. Corals are the most famous as we know it, and corals are actually organisms called polyps that can live on their own, but are primarily associated with the spectacularly diverse limestone communities or reefs they construct. And of course we know coral reefs are the most important ecosystems, and so far from what we saw till here, almost all animals here unfortunately are affected by human activities. Coral polyps are tiny, soft-bodied organisms related to the sea anemones and jellyfish. At their base, is a hard protective limestone skeleton called a calcell, which forms the structure of coral reefs. Reefs begin when a polyp attaches itself to a rock on the seafloor, then divides or buds into thousands of colonies. The polyp calcells connect to one another, creating a colony that acts as a single organism. As colonies grow over hundreds and thousands of years, they join with other colonies and become reefs. Some of the coral reefs on the planet today began growing over 50 million years ago. Coral polyps are actually translucent animals. Reefs get their wild hues from the billions of colorful algae they host. When stressed by such things as temperatures change or pollution, those algae will die out and so expel the coral and cause the coral bleaching that can kill the colony if the stress is not mitigated. Corals live in tropical waters throughout the world, generally close to the surface where the sun rays can reach the algae. While corals get most of their nutrients from the byproducts of algae, photosynthesis, they also have barbed venomous tentacles. They can stick out, usually at night, to grab zooplankton and even small fish. And so again, climate change and pollution is affecting coral reefs as well. Coral reefs teem with life, covering less than 1% of the ocean floor, but supporting about 25% of all marine creatures. However, threats against such as climate change and pollution are affecting their population too. The next we have got a seemingly, non-looking animal, but indeed a very clever one also. Here we have got nudibranchs or sea slugs. The bottom-dwelling, jelly-bodied nudibranch might seem as unlikely canvas for Mother Nature to express her wildest indulgence of color and form, as we can see here. But these shellless mollusks, part of the sea slug family, bear some of the most fascinating shapes and intricate patterns of any animal. There are more than 2,000 known species of nudibranch, and new ones are being identified almost daily. They are found throughout the world oceans, but are most abundant in shallow tropical oceans. They are of course carnivores that slowly ply their range, grazing on algae, sponges, animals and corals, barnacles and even other nudibranchs. To identify prey, they have two highly sensitive tentacles, which which you can see in these pictures too, called rhinophores, located on top of their heads. Nudibranchs derive their coloring from the food they eat, which helps in camouflage, and some even retain the food-tasting poisons of their prey and secrete them on as a defense against predators. Some slugs, for example, eat, polyps of jellyfishes or even tentacles of jellyfishes, and they collect those large amounts and very sometimes poisonous amounts of, venomous amounts of sting cells in these hair-like structures on the back. And once threatened, the same way as a jellyfish does it, they can harpoon their prey, or they can harpoon their attacker too. The next you have got something that looks like a mythical creature and can fly. Here we have got a flying fish. They are thought to have evolved this remarkable gliding ability to escape predators, of which they have many. Their pursuers include mackerel, tuna, swordfish, marlin and other larger fish. For their sustenance, flying fish feed on a variety of food including plankton, and there are at least 14 odd species of flying fish. The process of taking flight or gliding begins by gaining great velocity underwater, about 37 miles per hour. Angling upward, the four-winged flying fish breaks the surface and begins to taxi by rapidly beating its tail while it is still beneath the surface. It then takes to the air, sometimes reaching heights over 4 feet and gliding long distances up to 655 feet. Once it nears the surface again, it can flap its tail and taxi without fully returning to the water, capable of continuing the flight in such a manner. Flying fish have been recorded to glide with consecutive glides spanning distance up to 1,312 feet. And of course they are something which I myself love to see alive. But again, it's believed that they too are overfished. And you can see they are not as big as a tuna or itself. As we can see the size over here, they are a bit larger than a teacup. The next we have got is something which is so famous and something which we have discussed in other classes too. A great white shark. Found in cool coastal waters around the world, great whites are the largest predatory fish on earth. They grow to an average of 15 feet in length, though specimens exceeding 20 feet and weighing up to 5,000 pounds have been recorded. They have slate grey upper bodies to blend in with their rocky coastal seafloor, but they get their name from their white underbellies. They are streamlined, torpedo-shaped swimmers with powerful tails that can propel them through the water at speeds of up to 15 miles per hour. They can even leave the water completely, breaching like whales when attending prey from the beneath. Highly adapted predators, and their mouths are lined with up to 300 serrated triangular teeth arranged in several rows, and they have an exceptional sense of smell to detect prey. They even have organs that can sense the tiny electromagnetic field generated by animals, as we said again last class, the class which had about sharks and whales. Their prey include other sharks, crustaceans, mollusks and seabirds. Large great white sharks will also prey on sea lions, seals, small-toothed whales like orcas, and the species has even been seen feeding on dead whales. So, how many of you here would like to see a great white shark, and how many of you would like to dive with them once? I guess this means none of you, yeah? The next we have got the longest known lifespan of all vertebrate species. It is estimated to be between 300 to 500 years. and this species is among the largest extant species of shark. It is the Greenland shark. The Greenland shark is one of the largest living species of shark. Greenland sharks grow to 6.4 meters and 1000 kg, and possibly up to 7.3 meters and more than 1400 kg. Most Greenland sharks observed have been around 2.44 to 4.8 meters long and weigh up to 400 kg. When feeding on large carcasses, the shark employs a rolling motion of its jaw. The 48 to 52 teeth of the upper jaw are very thin and pointed, lacking serrations. These upper jaw teeth act as an anchor, while the lower jaws proceed to cut massive chunks out of their prey for a quick and easy meal. And you know, they are, as we said earlier, they live between 300 to 500 years. The longest known living animal on earth. And you know, they don't actively hunt, but they just stay, and they are actually, you know, as we said, opportunity hunters. The next we have got the largest known species of sea turtle, or any turtle, and it is the leatherback sea turtle. There it is, the one on the right. Leatherbacks are the largest turtles on earth, growing up to 7 feet long and exceeding 2,000 pounds. These reptiles are the only remaining representatives of a family of turtles that traces its evolutionary route back more than 100 million years. Once prevalent in every ocean except in Arctic and Antarctic, the leatherback population is rapidly declining in many parts of the world. While all other sea species have hard bony shells, the inky blue carapace of the leatherback is somewhat flexible and almost rubbery to the touch. Ridges along the carapace help give it more hydrodynamic structure. Leatherbacks can dive to depths of 4,200 feet, deeper than any other turtle, and can stay down for up to 85 minutes. Leatherbacks undertake the longest migration between breeding and feeding ground areas of any turtle, average 3,700 miles each way. After mating at sea, females come ashore during the breeding season to nest. The nighttime ritual involves excavating a hole in the sand, depositing around 80 eggs, filling the nest, leaving a large disturbed area of sand that makes detection by predators difficult, and finally returning to the sea. However, there is a very fascinating thing. The temperature inside the nest determines the gender of the hatchlings. A mix of male and female hatchlings occurs when nest temperature is approximately 85.1 degrees Fahrenheit, while higher temperatures produce females and cooler temperatures produce males. Female hatchlings that make it to the sea will roam the oceans until they reach sexual maturity, when they return to the same nesting areas to produce their own offspring. However, the males spend the rest of their lives at sea. Many leatherbacks meet an early end due to human activity. It is estimated that only about 1 in 1,000 leatherback hatchlings survive to adulthood. Eggs are often taken by humans from nests to be consumed. Many leatherbacks fall victims to fishing lines and nets, or are struck by boats. Leatherbacks also can die if they ingest floating plastic debris mistaken for their favorite food, jellyfish. And some individuals have been found to have almost 11 pounds of plastic in their stomachs. Unfortunately, we can see that plastic is having devastating effects in almost everywhere on our planet. The next we have got the rarest species of sea turtle. It's a Kempselidae sea turtle on the left, and they prefer shallow waters where they dive to the bottom to feed on crabs, which are their favorite food, and other shellfish. They also eat jellyfish and occasionally munch on seaweed and seagrass as well, and they can live up to 50 years old. An albatross. An albatross aloft, can be a spectacular sight. These feathered giants have the longest wingspan of any bird, up to 11 feet. The wandering albatross is the biggest of some 24 different species. Albatross use their formidable wingspan to ride the ocean winds and sometimes to glide for hours without rest or even a flap of their wings. They also float on the sea surface, though the position makes them vulnerable to aquatic predators. Albatross drink salt water, as do some other seabirds. As we can see, the size compared to human is just enormous. These long-lived birds have reached a documented 50 years of age, and they are rarely seen on land and gather only to breed, at which time they form large colonies on remote islands. Mating pairs produce a single egg and take turns caring for it. Young albatross may fly within 3 to 10 months, depending on the species, but then leave the land behind for some 5 to 10 years until they themselves can come back here to breed. And some species of albatross appear to mate for life. Albatrosses feed primarily on squid or schooling fish, but are familiar to mariners because they sometimes follow ships in hope of dining on hangouts or garbage, unfortunately. And albatross have a special place in maritime law, and most memorably booked. But again, unfortunately, these animals too are threatened by plastic pollution also. The next, we have got the animal that is quite mysterious, but among the largest. A giant squid on the right. The giant squid remains largely a mystery to scientists despite being the biggest invertebrate on Earth. The largest of these elusive giants ever found measured 59 feet in length and weighed nearly a ton. Giant squid, along with their cousins, the colossal squid, have the largest eyes in the animal kingdom, measuring some 10 inches in diameter. These massive organs allow them to detect objects in the lightless depths, where most other animals would see nothing. Like other species, they have 8 arms and 2 longer feeding tentacles that help them bring food to their beak-like mouths. The diet likely consists of fish, shrimps and other squids, and some suggest that they might even attack and eat small whales. And there has been, the marks of their tentacles on sperm whales as well. The next, beside it, we have got a giant Pacific octopus, among the most clever of all invertebrates. The giant Pacific octopus grows bigger and lives longer than any other octopus species. The size record is held by a specimen that was 30 feet across and weighed more than 600 pounds. Average are more like 16 feet and 100 pounds. Giant Pacific octopuses have huge bulbous heads and are generally reddish-brown in color. Like the other members of the octopus family, they use special pigment cells in their skin to change color and texture, and can blend in with even the most difficult patterns of corals, plants and rocks. They hunt at night, surviving primarily on shrimps, clams, lobsters and fish, but have been known to attack and eat sharks as well as birds, using their sharp beak-like mouths to puncture and tear flesh. Highly intelligent creatures, giant Pacific octopus have learned to open jars, mimic other octopi and solve mazes in lab tests. Their population numbers are unknown and they do not currently appear on any list of endangered or vulnerable animals. However, they are sensitive to environmental conditions and may be suffering from high pollution levels in their range. Freshwater ecosystems, known as some we can say again some species, some type of marine ecosystems. So we know that every living thing on Earth needs water to survive, but more than 100,000 species, including our own, needs a special kind of water, fresh water, that can only be found in certain places and is in very rare supply. The plants, animals, microbes, rocks, soil, sunlight and water found in and around this valuable resource are all part of what is called a freshwater ecosystem. Less than 3% of our planet's water is freshwater, and less than half of that is available as a liquid. The rest is locked away as ice in polar caps and glaciers. For these reasons, freshwater ecosystems are a precious resource. Freshwater starts out as water vapor that has evaporated from the surface of the oceans, lakes and other bodies of water. When this vapor rises, it leaves salts and other contaminants behind and becomes fresh. The water vapors collect in drifting clouds that eventually release the water back to the earth in the form of rain or snow. After fresh water reaches the ground through precipitation, it follows downhill across a landscape called the watershed to lakes, ponds, rivers, streams and wetlands. But fresh water can be found in less obvious places too. More than half of all fresh water on our planet seeps through soil and becomes, it actually becomes like a cave between rocks to form aquifers that are filled with groundwater. The top surface of an aquifer is called the water table, and this is the depth where wells are drilled to bring fresh water into cities and homes. Freshwater ecosystem naturally shares resources between habitats. The ecosystem is in rivers and streams, for example, bring salts and nutrients from the mountains to lakes, ponds, wetlands at rural elevations. And eventually they bring those nutrients to the oceans. These waterways also enable migrating species like salmon to bring nutrients from the oceans to upstream freshwater ecosystems. Lakes and ponds, on the other hand, can exchange nutrients in a seasonal cycle. Cold water is denser than warm water, so it sinks to the bottom, where a fairly steady temperature is maintained. However, as the air temperature drops with the arrival of winter, the water that is closest to the surface may drop below the temperature of the water at the bottom of the lake, causing it to sink and warm water to rise. The same process happens as floating surface ice melts into very cold water in the spring. During these periods, nutrients are churned from the floor and brought into the surface. It is normal for ecosystems to encounter change. Temperatures may fluctuate, populations may rise and fall, and rain may bring an abundance of water. Then tapering during droughts, they dry up too. The plants, animals and microbes in healthy freshwater ecosystems are resilient and have adaptations that allow them to adjust appropriately until ideal conditions resume. However, if any element of the ecosystem varies too far outside of norm, the balance of the whole system can start to fail. To keep their chemistry running smoothly, living things need just the right amount of water in their bodies, and you think that fish have it made when it comes to staying hydrated, but it's not that easy. Fish gills let oxygen flow into their bodies, but they're also letting water constantly escape. And that can be a very big problem if you want to, stay alive. Ocean water is salted on the outside of fish, so water wants to move from the inside out to balance that out. The same way which we saw it in this video also. That's how a big problem for your fish who wants to stay alive. Now we keep the salts and dissolved chemicals in our blood balanced by flushing the extra to our kidneys and drinking fresh water when we're thirsty. But ocean fish only have one option: to drink salt water in order to get the H2O they need to stay alive. And most of them do that a lot. But they need to get rid of the salt without dehydrating, which they do using special cells in their gills that pump out extra. Ocean fish only make a tiny amount of urine, and what little urine they make is almost as salty as the ocean itself. Freshwater fish, however, have a different problem. Their insides are saltier than where they live. So water is constantly leaking in to their skin and gills. They even get more water from their food. So even in their wet environment, they never have to take a drink. So freshwater fish have to get rid of water constantly to keep their cells from bursting, which means they urinate a lot, which you can see in this video too. However, fish urine is full of ammonia, a nitrogen containing compound, and phosphorus, both nutrients plants need. They also feed algae, coral reefs, like liquid fertilizers that keep aquatic ecosystems healthy. Some fish, however, are different with this salt and water balancing act. Some are able to live in water so salty it is hard for them to stay below the surface. Others, like salmon, can change their body chemistry to move from salt to fresh water. Sharks and their relatives, however, are extraordinary when it comes to salt-water balance. Using a special enzyme, they stuff urea, another nitrogen containing compound, into their tissues. By loading their inside with another ion, they keep water from wanting to escape out of their bodies. One of the famous animals in the freshwater and sometimes in the aquarium trade also is an alligator gar. It has no relation with the alligator, but with its wide crocodilian head and razor-sharp teeth, it's easy to see how this giant fish got its name. Alligator gars are able to tolerate blackish and even salt water, but they prefer to stay in pools and black water of large rivers, swamps, and lakes. The fish spongy and highly vascular air bladder behaves like a lung to aerate the alligator gar's blood. It also allows the fish to gulp air to breathe in waters with low oxygen. It may obtain as much as 70% of the oxygen it needs from the atmosphere. However, alligator gars have very few predators. Though alligators have been known to attack them and young fish are preyed upon by other species, adult alligator gars primarily prey on fish, but they are opportunistic feeders who also eat blue crabs, small turtles, waterfowl and other birds, and small mammals also. The next which we have got is a rather very dangerous animal, which we all know it as an electric eel. Despite their appearance, electric eels are not actually eels. The scientific classification is closer to carp and catfish. These famous freshwater predators get their name from the enormous electrical charge they can generate to stun prey and, kill predators. Their bodies contain electrical organs with about 6,000 special cells called electrocytes that store power like tiny batteries. When threatened or attacking prey, these cells will discharge simultaneously, and they can make a shock up to 860 volts and up to 1 ampere of current. They live in murky streams and ponds of the Amazon, feeding mainly on fish, but also amphibians and even birds and small mammals. As air breathers, they must come to the surface frequently, and they also have poor eyesight but can emit a low-level charge less than 10 volts, which they use like a radar to navigate and locate prey. The next animal is the largest of the amphibians, and indeed they're the largest of any amphibian in the world, the Chinese giant salamander. It has a large head, small eyes and a dark wrinkly skin. Its flat broad head has a wide mouth, round lidless eyes and a line of haired tubercles that run around the head and shout. Its color is typically dark brown with a motif of spectral patterns, but it can also be of other brownish tones, dark reddish or black. All species of giant salamanders produce a sticky white skin secretion that repels predators. The average adult salamander weighs 25 to 30 kg and is 115 centimeters in length. It can reach up to 50 kg in and in weight and 180 centimeters too in length, making it the largest amphibian species. The Chinese giant salamander has been recorded feeding on insects, millipedes, horsehair worms, amphibians, both frogs and salamanders, freshwater crabs, shrimps. But it has a very poor eyesight, so it depends on special sensory nodes that run in a line on the body front, the tail to the head, and it is capable of sensing the slightest vibrations around it with the help of these nodes. But most amphibians have thin skins that is very permeable, allowing liquid and gases to pass through it easily. This is important for two reasons. First, it means that their skin helps them to breathe, since oxygen passes easily through it. Second is that it means that amphibians lose a lot of water through their skin. The prehistoric looking alligator snapping turtle is the largest freshwater turtle in the world, with its spiked shell, beak-like jaws and thick scaled tail. This species is often referred to as the dinosaur of the turtle world. Alligator snappers can live up to 50 to 100 years old. Males average 26 inches in shell length and weigh over 175 pounds, although they have been known to exceed 220 pounds, and the much smaller females top out at around 50 pounds. Alligator snappers spend most of their lives in the water, the exception being when females come ashore to dig their nest. They can stay submerged for up to 40 to 55 minutes before surfacing for air, and the alligator snappers employs a unique natural rule in the hunting technique, as you can see over here also. On its tongue there is a bright red worm-shaped piece of flesh that, when displayed by a motionless turtle on a river bottom, draws curious fish or frogs close enough to be snatched. The next we have got here is the largest of all snakes, the green anaconda, a member of the boa family, the largest snake in the world. Its cousin, the reticulated python, can reach slightly greater lengths, but the enormous girth of the anaconda makes it almost twice as heavy. Green anacondas can grow to more than 29 feet and weigh more than 550 pounds and measure more than 20 inches in diameter. Females are significantly larger than males, and other anaconda species are from South America and are all smaller than the green anaconda, or the yellow, dark spotted and Bolivian varieties. Anacondas live in swamps, marshes and land, or we can say the slow moving streams, mainly in the tropical rainforests of the Amazon. They are very slow on land, but steadily and very fast in the water. Their eyes and nasal openings are on the top of their heads, allowing them to lay in wait for prey while remaining nearly completely submerged. They reach their monumental size on a diet of wild pigs, deer, birds, turtles, capybara, caimans and even jaguars. Anacondas are non-venomous constrictors, coiling their muscular bodies around captured prey and squeezing until the animal dies. Jaws attached by stretchy ligaments, allowing them to swallow their prey whole, no matter the size, and they can go weeks or months without food after a big meal. joining this lesson. Hope you enjoyed, and make sure you click on that subscribe button, like and share, so we can reach a higher audience, and of course be able to reach more people and spread awareness and help them learn about the natural world. Be curious, love the natural world, and protect it.